Today I've brought you guys a monstrosity. Listen up, Rangers! Welcome to the Geek Chest. My name's Steve, and today, as you guys can see, the figure is already completed. So, not too much of a how-to for this one. I'll show pictures of the progress on what I was doing for this guy. But for Clark, we're going to be completing his Super Godzilla collection. So you'll see here, I got my Super Godzilla that I made a while ago. We did a video on the channel. I also had one commissioned by me to make literally the same one. But the one I did actually had a gem, sort of like what I did for this guy here. Was the big difference between the one I did for him and mine. Mine's just painted, which I kind of wish to do the gem, but I don't want to break it apart, so I'm just going to leave it because I'm lazy. But what we got here is Bagan from Super Godzilla. This one is based off of some concept stuff, and then there was like statues and things made, and Clark really liked this version of Bagan in particular, so went with that for doing the styling. The big difference is the video game one has more of like a wing thing going on the back here, and then the color scheme. Because I don't really recall him being in the video game very white and red with some browns. But well, I guess it's not really white, it's more of like a really bright gray on this guy, which matches the image fairly well. So, I'll go over what I did with him here real quick, which is for the most part what this guy originally was a SH MonsterArts Destroyer, and yes, before you mentioned, it was already broke to begin with, so we didn't just take a brand new Destroyer and smash the crap out of it in order to make this. What it sounds like happened is sometime while Clark owned the Destroyer, the wings got damaged, so he contacted me and we talked about using this guy to be the base for Bagan. So, what I had to do initially is I had to tear this guy apart, pretty much the entire thing. Because you'll see on this guy, there isn't a lot of 100% intact pieces from the original. So, each section, I had to take my Dremel and Dremel down everything that wasn't going to be used or cut away. So, for instance, the shoulders, you'll see here, he would have had like the spiky protrusions everywhere, and then the section for the wings. And Dremeled all that down in a way, and just enough so that it still left enough plastic here to be kind of secure, stable is the word I'm looking for, because I didn't really want to, because you don't want to Dremel too much, because then if you make it too thin, it's gonna be really hard to sculpt on top of it, especially with the weight. That I had a problem here, but because I wasn't putting much sculpty here, it's not a big a deal. But there wasn't that much forgiveness with the parts I had to Dremel down for the legs here. The neck area was super easy. It was pretty much just the back piece. I had to Dremel all this section down. Same with the head. The head removed pretty much the entire back of the Destroyer and the cheek area. Front, I had to Dremel down because we had to put this section here because on the concept figure or picture thing had a lot of the skin on the front section here, so I had to sand all that down so I could put some epoxy putty over that. I had to sand down also the legs here because he has each of these little sections that have exposed skin, and then did the sculpting around that section, and then initially I put the sculpting here and then did the detailing to kind of replicate the skin, and then I sculpted over around that again once it cured to try to match the armor plating, because he has a lot of open sections here and there. Now, it's not 100% like the picture because one, it's hard to Dremel down everything and keep it super secure. I maybe could have removed this and redid it, but personally, I like the way it's detailing. And it's not a drastic enough change that it takes away from the overall look. The arms stayed the exact same. Outside of, you'll notice he actually has Godzilla hands. These are from one of the, I think I used 2003 hands because I had extra Godzilla, upper body part Godzillas from doing the Conzillas. So I took the hands off one. And then this one was broke. So I put a new joint into this one. So you'll see, like, this one has a little bit of detailing to it. This one doesn't. But that's just to fix it so you'll be able to actually pose it. Then I had to snip it down to stick it in there. Also, you notice I have this giant band-aid because my cat scratched me earlier. But I digress. And then the tail section here, again, also had to Dremel down the entire tops. Ended up just leaving this here because I, again, didn't want to take too much away from it because, again, you lose the stability of the plastic, and it doesn't take away too much. It's pretty much the only thing when you look at it that's still, like, hard to destroy. But the rest of this, because the crotch piece is the only other thing I really left because it actually matched pretty well. So after dremeling, had to start on the head, which I ended up having to redo the horn once because the first one I kind of started making them look more like the game, and then got reminded that I'm supposed to be doing the prototype, so I had to remove all the clay, let this part cure, and then redo the head. So the front section here was all redone. But took a wire, drilled it into the head, wrapped some, well, actually, this one I didn't do aluminum. This one has like a little bit of aluminum around it to kind of help bulk it up a little bit. Same with each of these little spikes here also have their own wires inside of them. And that's one of the reasons to do that too, is just to help keep them secure. But you'll see on the under section here with the eyes, it still destroys even though I repainted them. Also used some super glue with some accelerant to let it have that nice shine. Redid the teeth. The teeth are all the same from the Destroyer. I mean, I repainted the teeth. But I did sculpt the piece here underneath so he has that armor plating like you see under the jaw. And then the rest of this, I just painted it a little bit darker. So I used a really dark red for the undertone and then dry brushed brighter reds on top of it for those sections there. Same with the chest, was all resculpted as well. So he has that little plate there. It's the only sections here in the piece on the crotch that has some browns into it. Because for the most part, I didn't really see any other brown sections on the Kaiju other than really here. For the spikes, each of these, again, have wires in them as to not damage them. I did these in a black and then dry brush some grays over it just to give it a little bit of texture and kind of make them look more like, especially for the head, I was aiming towards like a bullhorn kind of look. And then just kind of kept it throughout the same with the rest of the spikes too, just to keep them consistent. You also see he's got 3 little spiky bits here too on the back of the shoulders. And then for the actual gigantic ass shoulders, which were a pain in the butt. Also one thing, which I think it works for me, but you'll see on the top, the bend isn't quite as uniform as I would have liked it to be. But once it cures, you're kind of screwed. And I think the direction, it still works really well. And then it also just helps with, he's supposed to be like a bio-mutant monster, so like these sections aren't natural, right? So you don't really want them like super uniform looking to begin with. Because, I can't think of the word. Consistency? Consistency? I don't think is the word I'm looking for, but I'm going to go with it anyways. But it'd make it look more unnatural if the sections looked uniform to me. And then you'll notice that he's got these little like gem sections here. What this is it's actually the rocks that you would see. I've heard it compared to aquarium tanks. But a lot of this is used for like floral arrangements and stuff like that. So I bought some these translucent stones and then stuck them in here while I was doing the epoxy and then sculpted around it and then let it cured and then just cleaned them up afterwards. Same with the painting. You'll notice it's got like a little bit of red on it around the edges, which I wanted that to kind of look like there's still like skin attached to them. So when I painted it, I actually went over majority of these, and then I took some nail polish remover on a Q-tip, and then removed the paint all the way down to the base. And that kind of gave it that look there of having the skin. And then did all the skin texturing on the under section of them, just to make it look more like a membrane. And I think that's pretty much it for the sculpting-wise. Feet, I more or less left alone, except for I removed the top claws and epoxied over them and gave them more of that skin look there because he didn't have it. He technically doesn't have this back claw, but we ended up leaving it in anyways because this is already kind of sculpted to work with that anyways, and helps to keep him more stationary. Helps to make him stand upright. As you guys can see, it's not super loose, but enough play, this is gonna pop out. But you still get the same posability. And I guess for the articulation, the head can look up and down. No worries. When I did the paint job, I did the base colors, so I did all this in a dark gray and then the dark reds, and then dry brush my, I think it's called parchment, but it's like a whitish gray over top. Did the light reds, and then I used super glue with accelerant to seal the section so that when it moves around, it's not going to be removing the paint. And then when you do your second sealing with the matte finish, it knocks down the shine. So I did all of that to all the pointy bits too. Like any section I could see kind of having paint rub, I try to protect it as much as possible. But he still gets nice side to side. You can rotate the head around if you want. Mouth can open and close. Shoulders go forward and back. You get a little bit of side to side, but as you can imagine, they are gigantic. So the weight can sag them down a bit, but they still hold pretty decently. The arms, the articulation didn't change much, so you get about that much range of motion. As I pop out the hand, stick that back in there, and then you can move the hand in one direction, rotate. The little hand can move forward and back. Legs go a little bit forward, a little bit back. Again, most of this is all just the same articulation the Destroyer would have had to begin with, because I didn't really add to the outer rims of the figure. Like, this is probably the section that I maybe reduced the articulation a little bit, because I had to cover up some of the claws that I removed. Because he definitely had a lot more spiky protrusions, if you guys remember Destroyer. So each of those sections, I also had to epoxy putty over top of those in order to make it work. And then for the tail, you can go side to side, you can go down, you can go up. This is probably the most pain in the butt part, because I had to rework this a couple of times in order for when the tail went in, you could still move it, but it wasn't going to damage this, but still kind of look natural. Maybe if I would go back over it, I maybe would have made that little spike angle a little bit more, but it still works really well. But I think if it was like slightly more diagonal, I think it would really be the perfect pitch. But anyways, that's pretty much it for this video. Super pleased with this. He'll be shipping out, as of this recording, tomorrow to his new home. Now I gotta try to find a broken Destroyer for myself to do one of these at some point, because my Super Godzilla needs a Bagan too. Although if I do that one, I'll probably try to make it look more like the video game. This guy's pretty much going to be a one-shot unless somebody else sends in their Destroyer in order to get it done. But anyways, help us defeat those Kaijus by hitting that like button, subscribe, become a Ranger today. We also got Instagram, Patreon, Pinterest, Facebook. Guys that keep up to date with channel donate, we greatly appreciate it. Also got an Etsy shop with some beams we restocked. Gonna have some more stuff towards the end of the month. Not sure if I'll have stuff really in time for Christmas, because my printer needs a new carbon filter, so I'm working on getting that solved. Oh yeah, also I forgot to mention the bottom of the feet I had to seal too with the same super glue technique. You can even see it's still a little bit shiny on the undersection of the nails. But anyways, see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.